Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. The Adastara hummed with the kind of pretentious luxury that made Dane want to punch something expensive. Crystal chandeliers swayed gently in the artificial gravity, casting rainbow fragments across marble floors that probably cost more than most planets' defense budgets. He adjusted the weight of his sword against his hip and wondered, not for the first time, why Earth had sent him to babysit a bunch of silk-robed diplomats who couldn't tie their shoes without a committee vote. The artifact of peace sat in its containment field like a crystalline egg, roughly the size of a grapefruit and smooth as polished obsidian. It pulsed with an inner light that made Dane's teeth ache. 17 star systems had spent the last 3 decades trying not to kill each other, and this thing was apparently the only reason they hadn't succeeded. Magnificent, isn't it? Dane turned. A woman approached from the observation deck, and his brain performed a small system crash. Green skin the color of deep forest shadows, black hair that fell in waves past her shoulders, and eyes like chips of obsidian that caught the artifact's light and threw it back in gold flecks. She moved with the fluid confidence of someone who'd never met a rule she couldn't bend. "You're the Caldanian observer," Dane said, keeping his voice level. "Tenka, right? Dr. Tenka Veltar, xenoarchaeologist and general pain in the ass." She extended a hand, and when he shook it, her fingers lingered against his palm. "And you're the legendary Dane Marcus, one of the 9 from Titan. I'm the guy they sent to make sure nobody steals the shiny rock." Bit of an oversimplification, don't you think? She stepped closer, close enough that he caught her scent, something like rain on stone and blooming nightshade. "This shiny rock is the only thing keeping 17 civilizations from turning each other into cosmic dust." Dane's grip tightened on his sword hilt. "Which is why I'm here to make sure nobody touches it." "Relax, warrior." Tenka's laugh was like breaking glass, sharp and musical. "I'm not here to fondle your precious artifact. I'm here to study it, from a respectful distance." "Good. Because the last person who got too close to ancient alien tech ended up as a footnote in a cautionary tale." "So on Earth, do you always carry that oversized letter opener, or is it compensating for something?" Dane felt his mouth quirk despite himself. "On Earth we call it being prepared. Try it sometime before you accidentally start a war." "I don't start wars. I just investigate things, very thoroughly." The way she said thoroughly made something tighten in his chest. He'd faced down entire fleets with nothing but steel and stubborn human pride, but this green-skinned troublemaker with her gold-flecked eyes and knowing smile was testing his legendary composure. "What exactly are you investigating, Dr. Veltar?" "The energy signature is fascinating." She gestured toward the artifact, and Dane noticed her hands, long fingers, graceful as a pianist's, with calluses that spoke of field work. Most peacekeeping devices work through suppression, dampening aggressive impulses, clouding judgment. But this one, it's almost organic, like it's alive. Dane watched the artifact pulse, its light synchronized with some cosmic heartbeat. If it's alive, then keeping it in a cage probably isn't making it happy. Probably not. Tenka moved closer to the containment field, and Dane felt every muscle in his body tense. The resonance pattern suggests it's designed to bond with biological systems, symbiotic rather than parasitic. Bond how? Physical contact would be the most efficient method. She reached toward the field controls, and Dane's hand shot out, catching her wrist. "Don't!" The contact sent a jolt through both of them. Her skin was warm, almost feverish, and he could feel her pulse hammering against his fingers. Her eyes flicked to his, and for a moment the gold flecks seemed to swirl like liquid metal. "Jumpy much," she murmured, cautious. "There's a difference." "Is there?" She didn't pull away, and neither did he. On Kaldan, we have a saying, the flower that never opens never knows the sun. On Earth, we have a saying too, don't stick your dick in crazy. Tenka's laugh was genuine this time, rich and unguarded. Charming. Do all humans flirt like longshoremen? Only the ones who aren't trying to get laid. Who says I'm trying to get laid? Dane released her wrist, but the warmth of her skin lingered on his palm. Your body language, your tone of voice, and the fact that you're standing close enough to count my eyelashes. Maybe I'm just nearsighted. Maybe you're just trouble. Tenka grinned, and Dane realized he was in serious danger of liking her. The best kind of trouble. Behind them, the artifact's hum grew louder, and Dane noticed the containment field flickering. We should step back. Why? Are you afraid I'll corrupt your precious... The lights went out. Emergency illumination kicked in, bathing the chamber in red. In the sudden darkness, Tenka stumbled backward, her hand reaching out to steady herself against what she thought was a chair or bench behind her. Careful, Dane started, but it was too late. Tenka sat down hard on the smooth, crystalline surface of the artifact. The moment her body made contact, the object pulsed with brilliant light, and she felt it begin to warm beneath her. Oh, she gasped, trying to stand, but the artifact was already responding to her presence, its surface becoming almost liquid. Oh no, this isn't... Tenka, get off it! Dane lunged forward, but she was already sinking into the artifact's embrace, the crystalline surface molding itself to her body like warm honey. I can't! Her voice was tight with panic and something else, something that made her cheeks flush green. It's pulling me in. The artifact pulsed once, twice, then began to merge with her body, disappearing into her skin like it was being absorbed through every pore. Tenka's eyes widened as waves of sensation coursed through her, and she couldn't tell if what she was feeling was pleasure or pain or something entirely beyond human or Kaldanian experience. Dane, she whispered, and her voice had a new quality, deeper, resonant, as if she were speaking through water. I think I made a mistake. The artifact disappeared completely, absorbed into her body, and Tenka collapsed to her knees with a cry that was part agony, part ecstasy. The ship's emergency klaxons began wailing, and Dane dropped beside her, pulling her against his chest. What happened? He demanded. But even as he asked, he could feel it, a warmth spreading through her body, a pulse that matched his heartbeat. What the hell just happened? I sat on it, she gasped, her skin flushed and fevered. The lights went out and I thought it was a chair. I sat on it by accident. You sat on... Dane stared at her, processing the implications. The artifact is inside you? Not just inside me. Tenka's breathing was ragged, her pupils dilated. It's integrating. I can feel it in my bones, in my blood. It's alive, Dane. It's alive, and it's... Her back arched, and she cried out again, a sound that was definitely not entirely pain. Dane felt his own body respond, heat pooling low in his belly, and he realized with growing horror that whatever was happening to her, he was feeling it too. Attention all diplomatic personnel, the ship's AI announced, its voice cutting through the chaos. The artifact of peace has been compromised. Security teams to the observation deck. This is not a drill. Tenka's fingers dug into Dane's arms, and her eyes, those beautiful obsidian eyes, were now shot through with veins of gold. They're going to want it back, she whispered. All of them. They're going to want to cut it out of me. Dane looked down at her, at this impossible woman who had just absorbed the galaxy's most important peacekeeping device through what could only be described as aggressive sitting, and felt something shift in his chest. Something that had nothing to do with the artifact's influence, and everything to do with the way she was looking at him like he was the only solid thing in a universe gone mad. Then, we better make sure they can't find you, he said, and helped her to her feet. The diplomatic crisis of the century had just become deeply, intimately personal. And somehow, Dane Marcus, warrior, guardian, and professional keeper of ancient weapons, found himself looking forward to the fight. The diplomatic chamber erupted like a wasp nest kicked by a drunk giant. 17 different species, each convinced they were the most evolved beings in the galaxy, screamed at each other in languages that made Dane's ears bleed. The Andromedans clicked their mandibles in rapid-fire accusation, while the Centaurian delegates' tentacles writhed with barely contained fury. "Where is it?" Ambassador Krell of the Vegan Confederacy slammed his four-armed bulk against the conference table. "Where is the artifact of peace?" Dane stood at the center of the chaos. Ten-Ka pressed close behind him, her hand gripping his arm so tightly he could feel her nails through his jacket. The artifact's integration had left her pale and shaking, her skin fevered and hypersensitive to every sound, every light, every breath of recycled air. "I asked you a question, human." Krell's voice could have shattered glass. "You were charged with protecting the artifact. Where is it?" "Gone," Dane said simply, and the word dropped into the chamber like a stone into still water. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. "Gone?" The Altarian representative's voice was a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the room. "Define gone." "Not here anymore." "Did you sell it?" This from the Syrian delegate, a creature that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a tax auditor. Did Earth finally show its true colors? Dane felt Ten-Ka flinch behind him, and something hot and protective flared in his chest. Nobody sold anything. "Then where—" "It's been absorbed," Ten-Ka said, stepping out from behind Dane. Her voice was steady, but he could see the tremor in her hands. "The artifact has integrated with my biological systems." The chamber exploded again, but this time the shouting was directed at her. Dane moved without thinking, placing himself between Ten-Ka and the mob of angry delegates. "You did what?" Ambassador Krell's eyes were the size of dinner plates. "You absorbed the most important peacekeeping device in galactic history?" "I sat on it," Ten-Ka said, and Dane almost admired her honesty. "I thought it was a meditation chair." "You sat on—" The Centaurian delegate's tentacles went rigid. "You sat on the artifact of peace." It was smooth and glowing. How was I supposed to know it was some kind of parasitic suppository? "Because," Dane said, his voice cutting through the chaos, "normal people don't sit on glowing objects they find lying around." "Normal people," Ten-Ka shot back, "don't guard ancient artifacts with swords like they're auditioning for a historical drama." "At least I didn't violate the galaxy's most sacred relic with my ass." "I didn't violate anything. I just deeply connected with it." The delegates stared at them, apparently unsure whether to declare war or call for popcorn. Ambassador Krell was the first to recover. "This is unacceptable," he rumbled. "The artifact must be extracted immediately." "Extracted how?" Dane demanded. "Surgery, molecular disintegration, whatever it takes." Ten-Ka made a small, strangled sound, and Dane felt rage bloom in his chest like a nuclear flower. "You're talking about cutting her open. I'm talking about saving the galaxy from war. By killing her? If necessary." Dane's hand moved to his sword hilt, and every security officer in the room suddenly developed a nervous twitch. "Over my dead body." "That can be arranged," Krell said, and 16 other delegates nodded in agreement. The medical bay looked like a torture chamber designed by someone with a degree in creative anatomy. Dr. Jex, the ship's chief medical officer, was a 7-foot-tall insectoid with the bedside manner of a military surgeon and the sense of humor of a tax audit. "Fascinating," he clicked, his compound eyes reflecting the scanner's light as he examined Ten-Ka. "The artifact has integrated completely with your nervous system. It's using your bioelectric field as a power source. Tenka lay on the examination table, her green skin slick with sweat. Every few seconds, her back would arch, and she'd bite back a cry that made Dane's teeth ache. The artifact's influence was growing stronger, and he could feel it like a low-grade fever in his bones. "Can you remove it?" Dane asked. "Define remove." Dr. Jex's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "I could perform a full neural extraction, but the survival rate would be approximately 12%. What about the other 88%? Death, paralysis, irreversible brain damage. Take your pick." Tenka's laugh was breathless and bitter. "At least I'd be fashionably disabled." "This isn't funny," Dane said. "You're right. It's hilarious." Her eyes found his, and he saw fear swimming beneath the bravado. "I accidentally sat on the galaxy's most important peace treaty, and now everyone wants to dissect me. If I don't laugh, I'll start screaming." Dr. Jex's scanner beeped ominously. "There's another complication. The artifact appears to be evolving." "Evolving how?" Dane's voice was flat. "It's adapting to her physiology, learning from her neural patterns. In layman's terms, it's becoming more human." "Or more Chaldeanian," Tenka corrected. "Let's not assume everything in the universe wants to be human." "The point," Dr. Zex continued, "is that the longer it remains integrated, the more difficult extraction becomes. Soon, it will be impossible to remove without killing the host." Dane felt something cold settle in his stomach. "How long?" "Hours, maybe less." Tenka's hand found his, and the contact sent a shock through both of them. The artifact pulsed in response, and for a moment Dane could have sworn he felt what she felt, the warmth spreading through her body, the strange tingling that was part pleasure, part pain. "Did you feel that?" she whispered. "Feel what?" "You did. I can see it in your eyes." Her fingers tightened around his. "It's not just in me, Dane. It's connecting us." Dr. Jex's scanner went haywire, squealing like a dying animal. "Remarkable. The artifact is responding to emotional stimuli. The stronger your connection, the more active it becomes." "What does that mean?" Dane asked, though he was afraid he already knew. "It means," Tenka said, her voice soft with wonder and terror, "that every time you touch me, it gets stronger." The private quarters Dane had been assigned were Spartan by galactic standards: a bed, a chair, and a small viewport that showed the endless star field. Tenka sat on the edge of the bed, her head in her hands, shaking with the effort of staying conscious. "The delegates are calling for my extradition," she said without looking up. "They want to take me back to their home systems for proper medical evaluation. They want to cut you open and see what makes you tick." "Same thing." She raised her head, and Dane saw that her eyes were now more gold than black, as if the artifact's influence was rewriting her from the inside out. "I'm scared, Dane." The admission hit him like a physical blow. This woman who had faced down an entire diplomatic congress with nothing but attitude and bad jokes was scared. And somehow, that made him angrier than all the threats and accusations combined. "They're not taking you anywhere," he said. "You can't fight 17 star systems. Watch me." Tenka smiled, and it was like watching the sun rise. "My hero. All testosterone and sharp metal. Better than all stupidity and poor seating choices. I really thought it was a chair. What kind of chair glows? The good kind?" Despite everything, Dane found himself laughing. "You're insane. And you're an archaic throwback who brings swords to laser fights." She patted the bed beside her. "Come here." "Tenka, I'm not trying to seduce you. I'm trying not to fall apart." Her voice cracked slightly. "Please." Dane sat beside her, careful not to touch, but she immediately curled against his side. The contact sent fire through his veins, and he heard her gasp as the artifact responded. "God," she breathed. "It's like being struck by lightning." We should stop. We should. But neither of them moved. Dane? Yeah? If they do manage to extract this thing and it kills me, will you make sure they don't turn me into a diplomatic footnote? You're not going to die. You don't know that. I know that I'm not letting them turn you into a lab rat. He pulled her closer, and the artifact's pulse synchronized with his heartbeat. I know that whatever happens, we figure it out together. Together? Her voice was soft, questioning. Yeah, together. Tenka was quiet for a long moment. Then, the artifact isn't just connecting us, is it? It's changing us. Dane felt the truth of it in his bones. The artifact wasn't just using Tenka as a host. It was creating something new, something that included both of them. What do you think it wants? He asked. I don't know, but I think we're about to find out. The emergency session was called at 3 o'clock ship time, when most beings were either asleep or in their species equivalent of unconsciousness. The diplomatic chamber was packed with representatives from all 17 systems, plus emergency security forces and what looked like half the medical staff in the galaxy. Ambassador Krell stood at the center podium, his 4 arms spread wide in a gesture that managed to be both diplomatic and threatening. The situation has reached a critical juncture. Without the artifact of peace, the accords signed at the Treaty of Starfall are null and void. Meaning? Dane asked, though he already knew the answer. Meaning, the Centaurian delegate said, that as of dawn tomorrow the ceasefire between our systems expires. We return to a state of war. Tenka's hand found Dane's, and the contact sent a jolt through both of them. Around the chamber, several delegates shifted uncomfortably, as if they could feel the artifact's influence radiating outward. War over what? Tenka demanded. Mining rights? Trade routes? Wounded pride? Territory, Krell said simply. Resources. The right to exist without interference from inferior species. And the artifact prevented this? The artifact created a field of understanding. It made aggression difficult, violence nearly impossible. It was the foundation of galactic peace. So basically, Dane said, you're all such assholes that you need an ancient alien mood ring to keep from killing each other. The chamber erupted in outraged shouts, but Dane wasn't finished. And now that the mood ring is stuck inside her, you want to cut her open rather than find another solution. There is no other solution, the Altarian representative said. The artifact cannot be replicated. It cannot be replaced. It must be extracted. Even if it kills her? Even then. Tenka squeezed Dane's hand, and the artifact pulsed so strongly that several delegates stepped back. What if, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. What if extraction isn't the answer? What if integration is? Explain, Krell demanded. The artifact is learning from me, adapting. What if it's not trying to be removed? What if it's trying to evolve? Into what? Tenka's eyes met Dane's, and he saw something there that made his heart stop. Into something new, something that doesn't need to be kept in a box and worshipped from a distance. You're talking about becoming a living weapon, the Syrian delegate accused. I'm talking about becoming a living peace treaty. The chamber fell silent. Dane felt the artifact's influence spreading through the room, touching every mind, every heart, creating connections that transcended species boundaries. For just a moment, he could feel what they all felt, the fear, the anger, the desperate need for something, anything to make the violence stop. This is unacceptable, Krell said, but his voice lacked conviction. Why? Tenka asked. Because you can't control it? Because it's not yours to command? Because it's dangerous. Because you're dangerous. We're all dangerous, Dane said. The question is whether we're dangerous to each other or to the things that want to destroy us. Tenka's grip tightened on his hand and the artifact's pulse quickened. Around the chamber, security forces were raising their weapons. Delegates were shouting orders, and the fragile peace that had held for 30 years was crumbling in real time. "Choose," Tenka said, her voice carrying despite the chaos. "War or evolution, fear or trust, the old way or something new." Ambassador Krell's 4 arms reached for his sidearms. "I choose survival." "Then," Dane said, drawing his sword in one fluid motion, "let's see who survives." The diplomatic crisis had become a shooting war, and at the center of it all, an ancient artifact pulsed with the rhythm of 2 hearts beating as one. The service corridors of the Atastara weren't designed for running battles or existential crises. Dane hauled Tenka through a maintenance hatch as pulse fire scorched the bulkhead behind them, the acrid smell of melted metal filling the narrow space. "This is insane," Tenka gasped, her breath coming in short bursts. The artifact's integration was accelerating, and every few steps she'd stumble as waves of sensation crashed through her body. "They're trying to kill us over a peace treaty." "They're trying to kill us over the most important peace treaty in galactic history," Dane corrected, checking the corridor ahead. "Empty for now." "There's a difference." "Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, or rather running, it feels like the same bullets." Behind them, boots thundered on metal decking. The Altarian security forces were closing in, their translator units crackling with barely contained aggression. Dane could hear at least 3 different languages, all promising various forms of creative dismemberment. "Left," he said, pulling Tenka down a side passage. "Service elevators this way." "How do you know the ship's layout?" "I studied the schematics. Unlike some people, I actually prepare for diplomatic missions." "I prepared. I just didn't expect to absorb the galaxy's most sacred relic through my ass." Despite everything, Dane almost smiled. Almost. "Still not letting you live that down. If we survive this, I'm going to—" Tenka's words cut off as her back arched, and she bit back a cry that made every nerve in Dane's body fire in sympathy. "Oh fuck. It's getting stronger." "The artifact?" "The connection between us." Her eyes met his, and he saw gold flecks swimming in the black depths. "Can you feel it?" Dane could. Every pulse of the artifact sent echoes through his nervous system, creating a feedback loop of sensation that was becoming harder to ignore. "Yeah, I can feel it." "Good, because I think we're about to need it." The elevator doors opened to reveal Ambassador Krell and 4 armed guards. The vegan's 4 arms moved with practiced efficiency, weapons trained on both of them. "End of the line," Krell rumbled. "Step away from the artifact, human." "The artifact has a name," Dane said, his hand moving to his sword hilt, "and she's not going anywhere." "You cannot fight all of us. Watch me." Tenka's hand found his arm, and the contact sent fire through both of them. The artifact pulsed in response, and for a moment, the air around them shimmered with something that might have been heat distortion or might have been pure possibility. "Fascinating," Krell said, his compound eyes reflecting the strange light. "The integration is more complete than we thought. You're both compromised." "Compromised how?" Tenka demanded. "The artifact is using your emotional connection to accelerate its own development. The stronger your bond, the faster it grows." "Grows into what?" "We don't know, and that's why you both need to die." Dr. Zephyr's private laboratory was a maze of gleaming instruments and bubbling specimens that made Dane's skin crawl. The xenobiologist herself was a tall, elegant creature with silver skin and eyes like liquid mercury. She moved with the fluid grace of someone who spent her life dissecting the impossible. "Remarkable," she murmured, running a scanner over Tenka's prone form. "Simply remarkable." "Can you get it out?" Dane asked. "Define it." Dr. Zephyr's scanner beeped frantically. "The artifact has integrated completely with her nervous system. It's using her bioelectric field as both power source and incubation chamber. Incubation for what? I don't know. But it's growing, evolving, learning from her genetic patterns and neural pathways. Tenka's eyes fluttered open. Learning what? How to be alive, I think. Dr. Zephyr's expression was one of scientific wonder mixed with terror. The artifact isn't just a peacekeeping device. It's an embryo. An embryo of what? Dane's voice was flat. Unknown, but the energy signature suggests something far older than current galactic civilization, something that predates the Treaty of Starfall by millennia. Tenka tried to sit up, winced, and fell back against the examination table. So, I'm pregnant, with an alien artifact baby. That's just perfect. It's not pregnancy in the traditional sense, Dr. Zephyr said. It's more like symbiosis. The entity is using your biological systems to complete its development, but it's also changing you in the process. Changing me how? Enhanced neural connectivity, increased empathic sensitivity, and Dr. Zephyr's scanner squealed. A psychic link with your bonded partner. My what now? Tenka's voice cracked. Him. Dr. Zephyr pointed at Dane. The artifact has identified him as your mate, your protector, the father guardian of its offspring. I'm not her mate, Dane said, but even as he spoke, he felt the artifact's pulse synchronize with his heartbeat. We barely know each other. Tell that to the ancient alien consciousness currently rewriting your genetic code. Tenka's laugh was breathless and slightly hysterical. This is insane. This is completely, utterly insane. Insane or not, Dr. Zephyr said, the process is accelerating. The entity will reach full maturation within hours. And when it does what? When it does, you'll both be fundamentally changed, bonded on a level that transcends species, genetics, even death itself. Dane felt something cold settle in his stomach. And if we stop the process, the entity dies, 10K dies, and the galaxy goes back to war. Some choice, Tenka muttered. Not much of one, Dane agreed. The service tunnels were cramped, dark, and filled with the constant hum of the ship's life support systems. Dane and Tenka had found a maintenance alcove barely large enough for two people, and now they were pressed together in a space that made intimate contact unavoidable. This is cozy, Tenka said, her breath warm against his ear. Don't get any ideas. Too late. I'm having lots of ideas. Most of them involve you not wearing that jacket. Dane shifted, trying to put distance between them, but there was nowhere to go. Every movement brought them closer together, and every contact sent jolts of sensation through both of them. The artifact, he said. It's affecting your judgment. Maybe, or maybe I just like the way you smell. I smell like sweat and fear. And leather. And something else. Something that makes my teeth ache. That's the artifact talking. Is it? Tenka's hand found his chest, and the contact made them both gasp. Every time you touch me, it's like the damn thing is purring. What kind of artifact purrs? Maybe it's not an artifact. Maybe it's something else entirely. Like what? A really committed sex toy? Despite everything, Dane found himself laughing. You're insane. And you're trying very hard not to kiss me. I'm trying very hard not to complicate an already impossible situation. What if I want it complicated? 10K, I can feel what you're feeling, Dane. The artifact is creating a connection between us. I know you want this. Wanting something and acting on it are different things. Are they? Her fingers traced the line of his jaw. Because right now, in this moment, we might be the only thing standing between the galaxy and war. Doesn't that give us the right to want something for ourselves? Dane caught her hand, but instead of pushing it away, he held it against his face. You don't understand. On Earth, When someone like me forms a bond like this, it's permanent. It's not just emotional or physical, it's everything. Everything? Mind, body, soul, the whole package. No returns, no exchanges, no takebacks. Tenka was quiet for a long moment. And that scares you? Terrifies me. Good, because if you weren't scared, I'd think you were broken. When Dane finally gave in and kissed her, the artifact exploded into activity. The cramped maintenance alcove filled with light as their minds connected, and suddenly, they were no longer in the service tunnels of a diplomatic cruiser. They were on Earth, Dane's Earth, the one that had burned. Tenka saw it all through his memories, the cities turning to glass under the artificial sun's fury, the screams of billions as the atmosphere ignited, the desperate fight for survival in the underground shelters. She felt his pain, his loss, his rage at a galaxy that had turned its back on humanity's suffering. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and the words carried weight beyond sympathy. "I'm so sorry." And then he was in her mind, seeing her world through her eyes. Kaldan, with its emerald forests and crystal cities, but also the loneliness, the crushing isolation of being the only one in her family to care about ancient history, about the stories of civilizations that had risen and fallen before her people had even learned to make fire. "You're not alone," he said, and meant it. Not anymore. The artifact pulsed between them, and suddenly they were somewhere else entirely. A vast space filled with beings of pure light, their forms shifting and dancing in patterns that spoke of joy, of connection, of a harmony that transcended individual existence. "The Zen fields," Tenka breathed. "This is what they were." "What they are," Dane corrected. "The last one. It's been waiting." "For what?" "For us. For this moment. For the chance to be born again." The vision faded, leaving them pressed together in the dark alcove, but the connection remained. Dane could feel Tenka's heartbeat, her breathing, the slow pulse of the artifact as it continued its development. "It's beautiful," she said. "What it's showing us, what it wants to become. It's also alien. We don't know what it will do to us." "Does it matter? Look around, Dane. The galaxy is about to tear itself apart. If this thing can prevent that, it might be worth the risk." Might be? Definitely worth the risk. Dr. Zephyr found them in the service tunnels 3 hours later, her scanner leading her to the source of the massive energy readings that were making the ship's instruments go haywire. "Incredible," she breathed, staring at the readings. "The artifact's development has accelerated exponentially. It's reached critical mass." "Critical mass of what?" Dane asked. "Life, consciousness, the emergence of a new form of existence." Dr. Zephyr's eyes were wide with wonder. "It's not just an artifact. It's a Zinfield egg, the last embryo of the most empathic species in galactic history." "The Zinfields are extinct," Tenka said. "They were, until now." Dr. Zephyr's scanner beeped frantically. "The egg has been dormant for millennia, waiting for the right conditions to activate. The right parents." "Parents?" "The Zinfields were a bonded species. They required 2 individuals, one to provide the biological matrix, one to provide emotional stability and protection. The egg has chosen you both." Dane felt the artifact pulse, and with it came a wave of something. Not quite emotion, not quite thought, but something that spoke of ancient wisdom and infinite patience. "It's intelligent," he said. "It's been intelligent all along." "More than intelligent. It's empathic on a scale that defies measurement. The original Zen fields could sense and influence the emotions of entire star systems. They were living peace treaties, walking embodiments of harmony. And now? Now the last one is about to be born, and when it is, it will change everything." "Change how?" "The birth process will create a permanent psychic bond between you both. You'll be connected not just to each other, but to the newborn Zen field. You'll become its parents in every sense that matters. Tenka's hand found Dane's, and the contact sent shockwaves through both of them. And if we refuse, the egg dies, the Zen fields become truly extinct, and the galaxy goes back to war. Some choice, Dane muttered. Not much of one, Tenka agreed. The diplomatic security forces found them in the main corridor, surrounded by the flickering light of the artifact's final development phase. Tenka was doubled over with something that looked like labor pains, while Dane supported her weight and tried to ignore the sympathetic contractions racking his own body. "Step aside, Terran," Ambassador Krell commanded, his 4 arms holding weapons that could vaporize them both. "This is no longer your business." Dane looked at his sword, then at Tenka, then at the growing crowd of armed delegates. His voice when he spoke was different, deeper, carrying an authority that made every being in the corridor take an involuntary step backward. "You just made it my business." He drew his sword in one fluid motion, and the blade began to glow with an inner light. Ancient symbols appeared along its length, sigils that predated the current galactic civilization, marks that spoke of power and authority beyond current understanding. The ship's hull vibrated with a resonance that seemed to come from the sword itself, and suddenly the corridor was filled with something that wasn't quite sound, wasn't quite light, but demanded attention from every living being within 100 meters. "Impossible," Krell breathed. "The House Marcus sigil. You're one of the 9. "I'm the last of the 9, Dane corrected, "and you're about to find out why that matters." The air shimmered, and suddenly there was a girl in the corridor. She couldn't have been more than 12, with violet eyes and hair like spun starlight. In her hands, she carried an energy blade twice her height, its humming edge casting rainbow shadows on the walls. "Big bro," she said, her voice carrying the innocent cheerfulness of a child asking about ice cream. "You need me to kill them or just maim them a bit?" The corridor went dead silent. Every weapon in the room suddenly seemed inadequate, every threat hollow. The girl's smile was sweet, guileless, and absolutely terrifying. "Who the hell are you people?" Tenka whispered. "Royal bloodline from Earth's old steel," Dane said, his sword still glowing with ancient power. "Only 9 of us left. We made the stars behave." He glanced at his sister, who was examining her fingernails with the casual interest of someone deciding what to have for lunch. "My sister eats diplomats." "It's true," the girl said brightly. "I had 3 for breakfast. They taste like chicken, but with more cowardice." Ambassador Krell's weapons lowered slightly. "The House Marcus died with Earth's burning." "The House Marcus died," Dane agreed. "We didn't." Tenka's scream cut through the tension like a blade. The artifact's emergence had begun, and there was no stopping it now. The choice was made, the die cast. Whatever came next would reshape the galaxy forever. And at the center of it all, a 12-year-old girl with a sword bigger than her body smiled sweetly and asked, "So, are we having a diplomatic discussion, or am I cutting people into fun shapes?" The birth was about to begin. The medical bay's doors slammed shut with a resounding clang that echoed through the ship's corridors. Lix Marcus stood with her back against the reinforced steel, casually sucking on a candy that glowed with bioluminescent swirls, while placing what looked suspiciously like military-grade laser mines in each corner of the room. "There," she said, with the satisfaction of someone who just finished redecorating. "Now we can have our weird alien birth in peace." Tenka's scream tore through the air, her back arching as another wave of whatever the hell was happening inside her body peaked and crashed. Dane gripped her hand, feeling every pulse of pain through their connection. His jaw clenched so tight he thought his teeth might crack. "This is insane," Tenka gasped between contractions. "This is completely—" "Wow," Lix interrupted, examining her fingernails with clinical interest. I thought I was dramatic during my first telepathic awakening, but this is next level. Want me to knock you out with a pressure point? Touch me, and I will birth you a second death, Tenka snarled. Kinda kinky. Dane, I like her. A thunderous crash echoed from outside the medical bay, followed by the distinctive whine of industrial cutting equipment. The diplomatic security forces were attempting to breach the doors with what sounded like enough firepower to level a small city. They brought a battering ram to a psychic birth? Lix shook her head in mock disappointment. Amateurs. Let me go talk to them in my outside voice. Stay here, Dane ordered, but his sister was already checking the seals on her laser mines. Relax, big brother. I'm not going to kill them. Her smile was pure innocence wrapped around a nuclear core. I'm just going to explain why they should reconsider their life choices. Tenka's next scream coincided with a blinding flash of light that filled the medical bay. The artifact, no, the egg, was reaching critical mass, and Dane could feel something vast and ancient stirring within Tenka's body. Something that was definitely not human, not Chaldeanian, but something else entirely. It's coming, she whispered, her eyes wide with wonder and terror. I can feel it moving. It's beautiful. Through their psychic link, Dane caught glimpses of what she was experiencing, visions of light and consciousness, of beings that existed on a plane beyond physical matter, of a species that had once brought peace to the galaxy through pure empathy. Hold on, he said, squeezing her hand. Just hold on. Outside, the cutting equipment suddenly went silent. A moment later, they heard Lix's voice, amplified through the ship's comm system and dripping with the kind of cheerful menace that made hardened soldiers wet themselves. Attention, diplomatic assholes. This is Lix Marcus, and I'm having a really good day, which means I'm in the mood to be creative. You have 30 seconds to step away from that door before I demonstrate why the Marcus family doesn't negotiate with terrorists. 29, 28. Your sister is terrifying, Tenka said. You should see her when she's cranky. The birth itself defied every law of biology Dane had ever learned. There was no blood, no physical trauma, just light. Pure, brilliant light that seemed to emanate from Tenka's skin as the Zinfield embryo completed its transformation from artifact to living being. When the light faded, a creature unlike anything in galactic records floated above the medical table. It looked like a cross between a jellyfish and a star, its translucent body pulsing with internal luminescence. Tentacles that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight waved gently in the recycled air, and its eyes, God, its eyes were like looking into the heart of a nebula. Okay, Lix said, lowering her energy blade. I was expecting tentacles, but not the adorable kind. Can we keep it? Please? The creature, their child, Dane realized with a shock that went straight to his bones, turned those cosmic eyes toward them and spoke, not with words, but with emotions that bypassed language entirely and settled directly into their minds. Love, gratitude, recognition, joy. Light-bearing parents, it said, and its voice was like wind chimes made of pure music. Thank you for bringing me home. Tenka sat up slowly, her green skin still glowing with residual energy. Home? This reality, this dimension, this moment. The creature, Spark, Dane found himself thinking, drifted closer. I have been waiting so long to be born. How long? Dane asked. Since the last of my kind chose extinction over enslavement, approximately 50,000 of your years. Jesus, Lix breathed. That's one hell of a pregnancy. Spark's attention turned to her, and Dane watched his sister's expression shift from cynical amusement to something approaching awe. Sister Guardian, Spark said, you carry the same light song as Parent Protector. Light song? The harmony of those who choose to stand between darkness and the innocent. You sing it very loudly. Damn right I do, Lix said, but her voice was softer than Dane had heard it in years. "So, little cosmic squid, what exactly are you?" "I am the last Zinfield, the final echo of a species that once maintained harmony across 17 star systems through pure empathic resonance. And now? Now I am reborn. And with my birth comes the possibility of peace, not through force or politics, but through understanding." The medical bay's doors chose that moment to explode inward, revealing Ambassador Krell and a small army of very angry diplomatic security forces. They took one look at Spark floating serenely above the medical table and raised their weapons. "Stand down," Krell commanded. "That creature is a threat to galactic security." Spark's response was to pulse once with gentle light. The pulse spread outward like ripples on a pond, and Dane watched in amazement as every weapon in the room suddenly seemed impossibly heavy. The security forces' expressions shifted from aggression to confusion to something approaching wonder. "I am not a threat," Spark said, its voice carrying to every corner of the room. "I am a possibility." "Diplomat smells like bad soup," Spark added a moment later, apparently having picked up some of Lix's more colorful vocabulary through their family bond. "Yes," Lix said proudly, "and remember, Spark, never trust a man with 4 arms and no sleeves." What happened next would be studied in diplomatic schools for the next 1,000 years. Spark, barely an hour old, somehow accessed the ship's central computer and began rewriting the fundamental protocols that governed intersystem relations. "Fascinating," Dr. Zephyr breathed, watching her instruments register changes that shouldn't have been possible. "It's not hacking the system, it's convincing it to evolve." The changes were subtle at first. The constant background hum of tension that had filled the ship for days simply faded. Delegates who had been at each other's throats for decades found themselves actually listening to opposing viewpoints. Weapons that had been raised in anger were slowly lowered as their wielders reconsidered the necessity of violence. "What is it doing?" Ambassador Krell asked, his 4 arms no longer reaching for his sidearms. "Creating consensus," Tenka said, still glowing faintly from Spark's birth. "It's not controlling minds or suppressing emotions. It's just making it easier to understand each other." Lix, meanwhile, had commandeered one of the ship's data terminals and was apparently setting up some kind of broadcast network. "If they're gonna stare," she muttered, fingers flying over the controls, "might as well monetize the weird." "What are you doing?" Dane asked. "Launching our show. Raising Zinfield, how we sat on peace and made a baby. I've already got 3 major networks bidding for exclusive rights. The baby is an hour old, and already more charismatic than most reality TV stars. Trust me, big brother, this is going to make us rich." Spark's empathic field continued to expand, reaching beyond the medical bay, beyond the ship itself. Across the galaxy, on 17 different worlds, beings who had been preparing for war suddenly found themselves questioning whether their grievances were really worth the cost in blood and suffering. "Remarkable," Ambassador Krell said, and for the first time since Dane had met him, the vegan's voice carried wonder instead of aggression. "The entity is creating a field of understanding, not forced compliance, but genuine empathy." "Its name is Spark," Tenka corrected, "and it's not an entity, it's our child. Your child is rewriting galactic law." "Good. The old laws sucked." The psychic bond between Dane and Tenka was like having someone else's thoughts permanently installed in his head, except somehow it didn't feel intrusive. It felt complete. Like a missing piece of himself he'd never known was absent had suddenly clicked into place. "This is going to take some getting used to," Tenka said, and he could feel her amusement through their connection. "The telepathy? The whole package. You, me, our cosmic jellyfish baby, and your psychotic little sister who apparently runs a weapons manufacturing business on the side. I prefer Creative problem solving, Lix called from her position at the computer terminal. And for the record, I only manufacture the really fun weapons. Define fun, Dr. Zephyr said nervously. The kind that make people reconsider their career choices without actually killing them, most of the time. Spark drifted over to hover between Dane and 10K, its tentacles gently brushing against both of them. The contact sent waves of contentment through their bond, and Dane realized that this strange, impossible creature was somehow managing to be the perfect child for two people who'd met less than a week ago. Light-bearing parents, Spark said. The harmony between you grows stronger. The song you create together will echo across the stars. Lix said without looking up from her work. Telepathic soul bonding. Gross. Sweet. But mostly gross. I give it 3 weeks before one of you tries to hide snacks from the other and gets mind-slapped. Your sister has a point, 10K said through their link. Are you prepared for a relationship with absolutely no privacy? Are you kidding? I've been waiting my whole life for someone who can't lie to me about whether they actually like my cooking. I hate your cooking. I know, that's why I love you. The formal ceremony took place in the main diplomatic chamber, with representatives from all 17 systems gathered to witness what was being called the most significant political development in galactic history. Spark floated at the center of the room, its presence creating a field of calm that made even the most hard-lined politicians speak in reasonable tones. The Galactic Council hereby recognizes Dane Marcus, 10K Veltar, and the being known as Spark as the official guardians of peace, announced Chancellor Vix of the Centaurian Republic. They shall have full diplomatic immunity and the right to mediate disputes between systems. What about compensation? Lix asked from her position near the wall, where she'd been quietly setting up what looked like recording equipment. Compensation? My brother and his girlfriend just prevented galactic war by having the weirdest pregnancy in history. That's got to be worth something. The gratitude of 17 star systems seems... Gratitude doesn't pay for diapers, or whatever the hell you feed a baby Zinfield. Starlight and mathematical equations, Spark offered helpfully. See? Expensive. Before anyone could respond, General Thax of the Andromedan Defense Force stepped forward, his mandibles clicking with barely contained aggression. I don't care what that thing can do. It's too dangerous to be left uncontrolled. It should be contained, studied. He never finished the sentence. Lix moved like liquid lightning, her energy blade materializing in her hand and coming to rest precisely 1 millimeter from the general's throat. You can have Spark, she said conversationally. Sure. Just sign here where it says, I consent to being kicked into the sun. The general's compound eyes focused on the blade, then on the cheerful smile that somehow made the weapon seem even more threatening. You wouldn't dare. General, Lix said, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried to every corner of the chamber. I once fed a Syrian battle fleet to a black hole because they interrupted my breakfast. Want to guess what I'll do to someone who threatens my nephew? The general stepped back. Your nephew? Spark's my nephew. Dane's my brother. 10K's my sister-in-law. And you, General Thax, are a bug who just threatened my family. Her smile widened. That was a mistake. The Marcus family doesn't negotiate with terrorists, Dane added, moving to stand beside his sister. We educate them, usually through practical demonstration. I withdraw my objection, General Thax said quickly. Smart bug, Lix said, deactivating her blade. 6 months later, the reality show Raising Zinfield, How We Sat on Peace and Made a Baby, was the most watched program in galactic history, streaming simultaneously to over 50 billion viewers across 17 star systems. The setup was perfect. 2 reluctant parents, their impossibly cute cosmic baby, and Lix, who had somehow become the galaxy's most beloved and terrifying television personality. Each episode followed their daily lives on the luxurious estate they'd purchased on a neutral moon, with Spark providing both comedy and profundity in equal measure. Previously, on Raising Zinfield, Lix's voice announced over the opening credits, they touched, glowed, and now everything smells like jasmine and regret. The money was obscene. Licensing deals, merchandise, endorsements. Apparently saving the galaxy was incredibly lucrative when properly marketed. Lix had negotiated contracts that made them wealthy beyond imagination, while Spark's natural charisma and wisdom made him the perfect spokesperson for everything from breakfast cereals to peace treaties. Zin Flakes, the commercial announcer would say over images of Spark floating peacefully in a crystalline bowl, enlightenment in every bite. The irony wasn't lost on Dane. He'd spent his entire life training to be a warrior and ended up making his fortune as a reality TV star. But watching Tenka laugh as Spark demonstrated his latest trick, creating small rainbows out of thin air, he couldn't bring himself to complain. "You know," Tenka said one evening as they watched the sunset from their moon surface, "when I sat on that artifact, I thought I'd ruined everything. Instead, you saved everything." "We saved everything. The sitting was just the catalyst. Best catalyst in galactic history. Your sister wants to trademark the phrase, galactic peace through accidental sitting. She probably already has." The balcony of their mansion overlooked a vista that included 3 different star systems, their lights twinkling like jewels against the cosmic dark. Tenka reclined in a chair that cost more than most planets' annual budgets, sipping wine that had been aged in zero gravity while wearing a silk robe that shimmered with threads of actual starlight. "So we accidentally incubated a universal peacemaker by flirting and sitting wrong," she said, raising her glass in a mock toast. "And now we're rich." Dane, polishing his sword while wearing boxer shorts emblazoned with their show's logo, grinned. Only in America could turning a booty accident into galactic peace get you your own reality series. Next episode. My alien baby just nuked a planet by laughing. And we're still rated PG-13. God bless capitalism. Spark floated nearby, his form pulsing gently with contentment. "Parents funny. Love parents." "See?" Tenka said. "Even the baby thinks we're ridiculous. Ridiculously rich, ridiculously famous, and ridiculously happy." Lix emerged from the mansion wearing pajamas and carrying what appeared to be a military-grade energy blaster. "I've already sold the movie rights," she announced. "The title, Hot Ass Diplomacy, The Galactic Position." "That's terrible," Dane said. "That's why it's going to make us even richer." As the 3 adults and 1 cosmic entity settled in to watch the stars, the camera, because there was always a camera now, pulled back to reveal the scope of their success. The mansion sat on a small moon they'd purchased outright, its surface carved with the words Zinfield Family Ranch in letters visible from orbit. Below them, the galaxy turned in its ancient dance, peaceful for the first time in millennia. And at the center of it all, the most unusual family in galactic history had quite literally made their mark on the universe. "You know what the best part is?" Tenka asked, as Dane wrapped his arms around her and Spark settled into her lap like the galaxy's most exotic pet. "What? We're still just getting started." The final shot showed their estate from space, a small moon orbiting a binary star, its surface glowing with the gentle light of a family that had turned one moment of accidental intimacy into the foundation of galactic peace. And somewhere in the distance, 17 star systems continued their eternal dance, held in harmony by the love of 2 people who'd met over a misunderstood artifact and ended up raising the galaxy's most important baby. It was, by any measure, the happiest ending in the history of diplomatic incidents. The end. Next season, Spark goes to school. coming this fall to Galactic Broadcasting Network.